Before we dive in, this week's episode is brought to you by my free cheat sheet, 30 Top Tips to Find Time to Write. In this guide, I give you 30 ways that you can find time to write in the small gaps that appear between the various errands and tasks and responsibilities that you have in your day-to-day life. Now, you might be thinking that you don't have any time to spare, but I can guarantee these top tips will give you writing time you didn't think you had. If you thought writing always involved a pen and paper or a keyboard, think again. If you thought you needed at least an hour at a time to write your manuscript, I help you reframe that. You won't be disappointed. Get your free copy of 30 Top Tips to Find Time to Write by going to emmadesi.com/30 top tips. Okay, let's dive in to today's episode. Hey, and welcome to today's episode of Turning Readers into Writers. And I had the great privilege of talking to Molly Fader today, also known as Molly O'Keefe. Molly is a prolific writer. She's written over 60 novels now. She really knows her stuff, and she writes across a few different genres, including steamy romance and women's fiction. So we have a great conversation about her new book, which at the time of us recording our interview had only just come out, The Sunshine Girls, and it's a dual timeline story looking at the question of female friendship and what women will do for each other and the sacrifices women will make for one another, because much as kind of popular media likes to pit women against each other, we actually love each other, and there's a lot that we will do for our close friends. So I'm really looking forward to reading that story because I do love a dual timeline. But more than that, we also talk about writing. As I mentioned, she's written over 60 novels. She is well versed in what it takes to put together a good story that she can sell to her publisher. And then subsequently sell to her audience. So we talk through her process, the synopsis that she puts together, how much she plans, what she leaves to magic, and what she considers important when it comes to making sure her stories resonate with her readers. But she's also just a really fun person, great conversationalist, and I really enjoyed our chat, and I'm sure you will too. All right, I will leave it there. Enjoy. Yay, Molly, great to have you here with me. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, you are a very, very experienced writer. You've got a fantastic catalogue of novels behind you. My ambition is to have 30. You've already doubled that. So I wonder if you could tell us about your journey to writing and maybe how you decided on romance and just how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So we have to go. My journey with romance started. It actually started, I think, where most people who really love and read romance started, which was probably a too young age to be handed a romance novel. So my family used to take these epic sailing trips with another family, and I was an avid reader, and the other family's mom was an avid reader. So we would each arrive, and this is pre-Kindle, ebook. So we'd each arrive with a giant bag of books, and I blazed through mine, and I'm going to say I was like 12. And she was like, well, here, you can read one of mine. My parents said nothing about it. And it was a Harlequin romance novel. And I read it and I was like, well, this is for me. It's for me in a big way. And at 13, it's just really titillating, right? Like it's emotional and it's putting words to feelings I have. And so it was all very exciting. When I got into high school, I had a friend of mine tragically committed suicide. And the romance novels that were like titillating and fun became like survival almost, right? Like happily ever after. It was absolute escapism from what was going on in our lives. And I at the same time, I was reading a book called Emily of New Moon, which is the L.M. Montgomery, the lesser known to Anne of Green Gables. Yeah. But she was a writer in that book. And I was like, oh, a writer is a thing you can be. That's interesting. So I went to school, I went to college, always knowing that I was going to go into writing, but I thought I would go into speech writing. I was sort of interested in politics, and then I was interested in journalism. And then I just sort of decided that in the evening I would give writing a romance novel a try. And, kept trying. I'm from the States. I met a Canadian boy. He went back home to Canada. I followed him and I couldn't work. So I took a course that ended up being taught by a Harlequin editor about writing romance novels. And she was incredibly helpful and incredibly grateful, or generous with her advice and criticism. And I finished my first book. And for anybody on this journey, the finishing of the first book is the first huge milestone, because all of us up until that point have like 7 first chapters. We have a high fantasy, we have a political, like we just have, so I think I was about 22 and I finished my first book, and an editor said, "This is very good. You should submit it." They rejected that one, but at that point, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And romance, because I loved it and I understood it, felt like my way in, right, into publishing. And it ended up, I ended up publishing my first book at 25. Then, back and forth, sort of moving between countries, ended up married in Canada, and I couldn't work for like a longer period of time. So I just kept writing. And then, so by the time we had kids, I was able to not work, be home with my kids, and write novels. And it sort of snowballed from there. So that is a very long answer.
No, it's no, that's great. Wow. So what a great start. I love it. I love the way life is so serendipitous at times. And so, romance was your love. And then by fortitude, there was that Harlequin teacher ready to teach you. Because I understand Harlequin have a way that they like books to be written. And so there was someone who could help you and kind of give you that training, I suppose, in the way that they write. Would that be fair to say? Or,
it's funny because Harlequin. So for those who maybe don't know, I am talking about like those. I feel like the world has changed so much that I'm talking about like, Morse code or something. But these used to be like grocery store romance novels. Like you could buy them in the grocery store. They were thin. The books that I was writing were about 50,000 words at the top end of it. So it's not that they had a pattern or a formula, outside of, genre conventions, right? But they definitely have a rhythm. And the learning that rhythm was crucial. And she was incredibly helpful with that. And it was a crash course in a way that maybe I didn't understand at the time. Like I needed to be older to get it, but that the rhythm of the pacing of books in general, like the way that, tensions mount, conflicts escalate, those sorts of things. So it was, I wouldn't say, I would just say rhythm and not so much the way that I butchered that last part.
No, you didn't. I know exactly
what I mean.
Yes. I was just talking to somebody about that yesterday, actually, that it's a sort of an intuitive thing, that the way a book unfolds, and how with study and with practice, you get to know the feel and the rhythm, as you say, of a book, and so you less need to turn to, okay, now I'm going to hit my inciting incident and now I'm going to move into Act 2, but rather it's a much more fluid and instinctive response to the story.
I agree with it so much. And I have often said to people who want to write that you can, to know, like some people are just like generally know that, like they are born sort of knowing that. And I wonder if they just sort of process storytelling in a way that I never could, but I could only get there by so much reading and so much writing. There was no shorthand. You have to read, you have to write.
Amen to that. Yes, you have to. You have to. So thank you for sharing all that. I think that's really no, because I do think that is important for new writers, particularly, just to kind of know that there's study and there's research, and it takes time to learn your craft, and it won't happen overnight. You do have to put in the apprenticeship. And you have more than done that now, because here you are, more than 60 books in, and at the time of recording, your latest novel, The Sunshine Girls, was published only 2 days ago. So woo, big kind of jazz
Thank
hands
you.
for you. Congratulations. So could you tell me about, well, first of all, tell me about maybe the inspiration behind it, and then tell us about the book.
Yeah. So the opening scene of the book is two estranged sisters, and they are at their mother's funeral in small town Iowa. And into this small town funeral walks like stage and screen icon Kitty Devereaux, who's, a Bond girl and a model and, just this gorgeous, but an older woman. And she walks in and she says, "You don't really know who your mother was." And she starts to unfurl this long, long story. And they've never met this woman. So this opening scene came to me fully formed, like completely, and exciting, right? Like, when you are inspired, you get that sort of inspiration like that, and it takes you by the throat and it's all you can think about. Mm-hmm. And then it was a matter of like, okay, so if it's 2019 and they're this age, and then how does the Hollywood icon meet the small town nurse? And so walking it back, I sort of realized that my mom is a nurse from Iowa. She went to nursing school in the 60s, and she had told me all of these stories, and I realized that those stories about my mom were just kind of waiting there. So I placed the book, there's two timelines, and the story in the past starts in nursing school with these two women meeting as roommates. And it's just like, it's 1967, and it's just like a really remarkably exciting time. Not just, there's civil rights, there's women's rights, the Vietnam War is starting. But it's also like a really interesting time for women in medical fields, right? Like there's a tremendous amount of misogyny, there's a tremendous amount of sexism, but also the information that women were getting, like pregnancy tests weren't readily available. The pill was just like starting, women's right to, choose, all of those sorts of things were at the beginning, they were in the conversation. And so it just became a really, really interesting time to write about.
Mm-hmm. And I do love a story with a dual timeline. I find it very clever. I think it's really great how you managed to kind of combine these things together. It's something I would like to do eventually. So is this isn't a romance? This is a move for you into a new genre, or does it then fall into the romance category?
No, this is a move. So again, because I've been doing this for so long, so I write romances under the name Molly O'Keefe. I write really sexy romances under the name M. O'Keefe, which is like a weird cloak and dagger kind of thing. And then I write sort of women's fiction, family stories, under the name Molly Fader, which is my name. Uh-huh. So this is a Molly Fader book, which in code means it's going to be a family history. The dual timeline thing, this is my first time doing it, and I'm the same way. I love them. I love reading them, and I thought, I'm going to do this. And it's so tricky. The two trickiest things about it were like, both have to be interesting, because we've read plenty of dual timelines where like I could skip the past or I could skip the present scenes. Mm-hmm. But the second thing that's really tricky is, as a writer, figuring out when readers know something. Like, because you have to reveal secrets in both timelines. And does the present know about the past? So it just starts to kind of do your head in a little bit. So that was like a weird puzzle that I wasn't expecting as I got into it.
So how did you work that out then? Was that something? So I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah. So are you a plotter, or would you say that you're a pantser if you were to classify yourself, which you may not choose to do, but do you like to plan ahead of time, or do you fly by the seat of your pants?
So I do like to plan ahead of time. I'm a writer who does write a synopsis, but I kind of get to this point in the book where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to start writing. Like, this is great. Let's just get going. So the ending is sort of like, and then stuff happens and it's over. Like in my head.
So bearing that in mind then, so that you do like to plan, because putting those two timelines together, did you find you spent time working that out ahead of time so that then when you came to write, you understood where you were going to put those breaks in? Or was it the jigsaw that, quite a complicated jigsaw, and you realized, okay, I've actually got to start writing and then I'll know where to make those shifts and changes? How did you kind of...
It's a ugly mess of both of those things, right? So I had it down to about halfway, and I was, this happens and then this happens and then this happens. This is revealed and this is revealed. And then I'm like, okay, I got to start writing this. It's getting too big in my head. Mm-hmm. And then the end was just a mess. It was just like a bonkers. Like, I'm like, why didn't I plan this? Past me. I'm so mad, So okay. It was a mess. It basically is my answer. Okay. Of both, a mess of both.
So if anyone's listening and they want to write a dual timeline, don't be afraid if the first or second draft is a bit of a mess.
Oh my gosh. I think the thing no one really tells you about writing is that you've got to be okay really messing up. Like you're not going to write a great draft. You're just not. You might write a couple of great lines, some great scenes, but your draft is going to be a disaster, and you have to be okay with it. Like that's a huge part of writing for me. Mm-hmm. Is like, this is bad, but I gotta just get, just keep moving.
Yeah. Yay. Okay. So we've got our glamorous Hollywood lady, our Bond lady, who's coming into small town Iowa, and she starts to reveal things. So how does this, what was the sort of question you were maybe asking at the beginning of this novel that would then sort of get answered over the course of it? What were the themes, if you like, that you were looking to kind of uncover in this story about these women going through this very exciting time in the 60s? And then, was your Hollywood lady, was she of an older school, of an older generation who couldn't see these changes?
No, so the past timeline are the woman, the mother who's died, and the Hollywood icon are friends and roommates in nursing school. So they go through the first part of nursing school together, but then big drama happens, big trauma happens, and they split up. And from there, Kitty goes to Hollywood. The mother who dies in the first scene, her name is BettyKay. So BettyKay follows her out to Hollywood. So we have this really fun period of time in Hollywood where they're sort of like figuring themselves out. Kitty is about to be like a gigantic movie star. But BettyKay realizes that this life isn't for her, and she goes back to nursing and then gets swept up in the Vietnam War. So we go from Hollywood to you forget that there was so much going on at that time. So the story really takes a really, I think, as a really great path through the events of the day. The story I wanted to tell was it is kind of a love story between friends about how you meet somebody and the chemistry is not unlike falling in love, right? Like the world is just brighter when you meet certain friends in your life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell that story, and I wanted to tell a story about what women will sacrifice for each other, like the parts of themselves that they will change, give up, trade, for their friends. And so that was basically the story I wanted to tell. Also Hollywood.
You've got a sort of lifelong love of Hollywood, old Hollywood, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I just think it's a really interesting, who doesn't? I just think it's interesting. It's super dark behind the sparkle. And I think that's probably a big part of the appeal of it, is that we know that behind that facade, it's dangerous waters. Mm-hmm. So I just found it really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm like that as well. I love it. My focus has always been the kind of golden age and the darkness that is behind the golden age.
Really?
I love Betty Davis. I don't know if you can see, or you can't see her behind me.
There she is. So is that the period that you write in? What do you write, Emma?
It's not actually. No, I write contemporary dark women's fiction, and with the move into suspense and thriller.
Ooh.
Which I really enjoy. And it's not, I don't know if you found it. Oh no, you did. You knew you wanted to write romance. I always read classic books and thought I would probably be more of a literary writer. And so it was a big surprise to me when I came out and wrote very commercial fiction. I was like, oh, okay.
So did that change happen because of something you read? Like, were you like, oh, Girl on the Train, this is for me?
No, it's just what came out. All my stories came
Fascinating.
out dark. And I don't know whether it's just the way I view life, but everything takes a turn. And no matter how often I try to write something light and a bit more rom-com, still something dark happens to the protagonist. So I've given up fighting it and just accept this is the way that I write. And maybe in a few years' time, I'll try and broaden my reach a bit, but I'm kind of good where I am right now. What was the word? You're kind of leaning into it, shall we say?
Yeah, nice. That's great. I mean, and it's such a hot market too. Like there is a unbelievable appetite for those domestic thrillers. Yeah. Like it just, and I who don't like to be scared, but do like dark things, give me an unreliable narrator all day long. I mean, there's just something for every kind of reader inside those books, I think. Like the twist at the end is always so delicious. Yeah, they're fun.
They are good fun. Yeah, and they're not too dark and too scary, but just enough intrigue to keep you on your toes, which I like. So I've kind of digressed about myself there and about Hollywood, but I just find it sort of interesting that even back in the 30s, thinking of someone like Fatty Arbuckle and Frances Farmer and people like that, and we're still seeing that reflected today when we think about Harvey Weinstein and things. It's like still happening and probably will continue to happen.
Yeah, well. The price of that glitter, the price of that fame has been the same price whole time, like since its inception.
The glamour of it, isn't it? It's that look and feel, which is something you've managed to incorporate into your book cover. Your book cover is beautiful, and you've managed to kind of get that feel for it, I think, with the glamour of Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, this was all I think it was actually all my editor who really spearheaded it. But it's like modern and retro at the same time, which is such a tricky needle to thread. Yeah, I quite love it.
And did you have much of a say in that? Were you allowed to kind of contribute to the look and feel of the book?
For those of you if you're looking at the cover, I said, could we have some flowers in the background? And so that happened.
That's good.
And I think I said, can my name be bigger? And that happened. So yeah, I totally contributed.
Well, from what I understand, that is a big contribution. I think the way that the publishing works is that the author generally gets very little say in the look and feel of the product at the end. I've
had to go back and forth over my years where, they send you a cover and you say, ooh, can we? And they say no. And sometimes you say, ooh, can we? And they say, yeah, of course. So it changes every time for me.
So it's always worth asking, because with newer writers that I come across, they're very passionate about the book, and also they have a very, very clear fixed idea about what they want the book cover to look like. But they want to have a traditional deal. And a little bit of me is going, don't let go of that book cover a little bit. But it sounds like it's worth asking anyway, because you never know if it fits in with.
Oh, it's worth asking. It's always worth asking. Because like in a publishing house, there are artists making so many covers, and so you may get a home run, but you may also get like not a home run. So it is always worth asking. But you also have to understand that your publishing company has some data that you don't have as a reader and as the writer of the book. And it's about what kind of covers appeal to what kind of buyers at different stores. And, this cover is coming out at the same time and they look too similar. So we have to change it. Like they have information you just don't have, but it's always worth asking for sure.
Well, cool. Good. So I want to come back to your book, and so it's got just trying to think if we wanted to entice some readers to go and take a look at it, what other books might you think would be, if they've liked this book, then they might like your book as well? What kind of comparables would you?
People are very generously comparing it to the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Yeah, I know. Which for sure.
Well, I am definitely checking it out then. I recently read that, and I have to say, I think it's as close to a perfect book as you can get for my money.
Wow. Yeah. Taylor Jenkins Reid, I actually liked the Malibu book a little bit more than Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I think it's just a matter of taste. She is writing big page turning, like they feel bombastic, but they are so sharp and they are so like attuned to emotion. Mm-hmm. So yes, that is and I'm deeply flattered by the comparison.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, wonderful. That's all we need to know. We'll be out buying it. Phenomenal. Is there anything you want to tell us about the book that perhaps I've not asked, and you think would be really great for people to know about?
Your questions have been so great. I think one of the things that readers have been loving about it is not just the fact that my mom's stories come through the book, but they're at the funeral, Kitty Devereaux slides these 5 buttons into Betty's casket, and they've been trading these 5 buttons back and forth since 1967, and the button thing is my mom and her best friend have done this exact same thing. And so I've stolen it completely from their lives, but they have, they've baked them in cakes. They've pickled them with, cucumber. Yeah. They've done all this stuff and trading it. So readers have really been loving the buttons. So I think there's a lot to love in the book. So go grab it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So as I've said before, you've written over 60 novels. Mm-hmm. That is a lot. That is phenomenal. So the question I'm thinking, what's going through my head is, especially as you've said that you do like to plan to a degree, is that you've got to be very disciplined to do that. Especially if I think back, you're talking about when your kids were young and you were still writing as well. So did you find that it was easy for you to get disciplined with your writing and put in a schedule in, a routine in, or have you found it was like that in the beginning and now it can be more fluid? How have you found your writing sort of practice to be?
Well, I made the joke about how, if you want something done, give it to a new mother while their kids are napping. I think about how much I was able to accomplish in those 2-hour stretches and how much I am not able to accomplish now that they're in high school. And like, I have all day and I'm just like, I don't even know what I do all day. But it does take quite a bit of discipline. And it might be the only place in my life that I'm disciplined. All goes to
what would an average sort of writing day look like for you? If you've got, particularly if you're starting a new project, let's say, what would be the sort of process that you go through?
So I'm very bad at doing all the things that a writer needs to do. So I can either write or I can promote. I can either write or I can edit. I can't do, like, there's some writers who are able to break up their day and do this really well. I find that if I go too far into like sort of admin stuff, the day is gone. So when I'm writing, I'm sure makes my editors crazy, but like when I'm writing, I'm just writing. So I really try to, the goal is at least 1,000 words a day, sometimes more if I'm on a roll. I'm a pretty quick drafter. And then I like to take a very long time to edit. Like I really, really, really love the editing process. So I think maybe I screw up my first drafts just to keep it interesting. So it takes me 4 to 5 months to write a draft and then about the same amount of time to edit.
Okay. And so does that 4 to 5 months, does that include your planning time when you're putting that synopsis together and figuring out who your characters are and what's going to happen? Yeah. Oh, cool. That, because I think it's something, well, I know it is something that new writers who are just finding their feet think about. And if they think about a published professional author, I think in their head, they're thinking, well, that's all you do. You write for 7-8 hours a day. And I certainly thought that because I remember reading an interview with Jeffrey Archer, who's a very prolific writer, And I think it was an interview with him when he was in prison at the time for one of his various misdemeanors. But he said, yeah, he would write for 7 or 8 hours a day. And to my teenage brain, I was instantly went, oh, okay, that's what it takes to be a professional writer. Not taking into the fact that he was in prison and had a lot of time on his hands.
But he was, yeah, that guy was doing other stuff with his day.
So I just think it's important to hear that it's not all day.
It's not all day, and it's not every day. And but it I think one of the things that it is like exercise. It is like all of that stuff where, like, if you let it go, it's easy to let it go. And then it's harder to get back into it. So one of the things that I say to writers is that you've got to start the habit, right? Like, you've really got to start the habit. You can say you want to write and you can have a great idea for a book, but that really only happens when you sit down and write. You don't have to do it every day, but you have to make the time and keep to the time and get some words on paper. Bad words, for sure.
Bad words, for sure, yeah. And so do you find your most creative space in the day is the morning or the afternoon, or are you a night writer?
Morning, totally morning. Like, I'm doing crazy stuff now. Like, I'm waking up at 5:30, which is ungodly. Like, it's gross. It's so gross. And it's not even like my kids are gone all day, but it's that I get a little bit done, and then the morning mayhem, and then they're gone and I can get back to it for a little bit. But I'm just like that, being able to wake up, make coffee, sit down, start working is really precious to my process.
Cool. And I just want to go back to your synopsis and your plan of it, just to kind of help people out. And so I know sometimes if you've been doing this for a long, long time, sometimes it's hard to kind of think about, okay, well, what is my process? But if you can find a way of describing to us, say, how in depth is your synopsis? What do you include in that synopsis? Do you know what your characters' flaws are at that beginning, or what their motivation is? Or do you find that comes later? How detailed are you, I guess, in the plan?
So, I tend to think, I get an idea. I don't think about a character first. I think about a premise first. So, in this case, it's the two sisters at their mother's funeral, and in walks this movie star. And so from there, it is a matter of like building a snowball. And part of the snowball is character, and part of the snowball is how that character informs the plot, or what I need the plot to make the character do, right? Like, one way or the other. So I try to, some of that stuff you can really only figure out, for me, I can only figure out while I'm writing. Like, some of that, like I get to a point where I'm just like, okay, I have to start writing now. And the characters always surprise me. And that's part of the magic of writing. Like, I couldn't do this. It wouldn't be interesting to me if I had it all figured out, right? Like, some magic has to happen as you're doing it. But I tend to, because at this point in my career, I can sell on Synopsis. I tend to write a very long synopsis, and I send that to my agent or my critique partners, and they're like, what is going on? Like, and I feel like I have been so thorough and I've answered every question, but the reality is that I've only created more questions and it's super confusing. So then I have to cut that way down and just go beat by beat, emotional change, plot beat, emotional change, plot beat, emotional change, like just the basics. So I try to make it like about a 4-page. I don't get fancy. Nobody's described. It's all character reveal, plot change as I go.
That simplicity, I just love that. That's something I get my students to do at a later stage, because they're writing their first novel. So there's a lot they're trying to figure out. But certainly by the end of that first draft, that is something that we go back to. And we kind of say, okay, what's happening in this scene? And what's the point to it? What's happening? How is it shifting and changing your character? And it's really hard to do. And my coach gets me to do this, and I fight it because I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know how to explain it. But it's only when she forces me to do it, or I force my students to do it, that we really get that clarity that we're looking for. And once we have that clarity in our heads, only then can we put it on the page and share that with the reader as well.
I will tell you, my career changed in terms of selling books, in terms of selling books for more money to publishers, when I started and then have continued, and I don't do it for every book because I'm super lazy and I don't know, you make that sentence, that selling sentence, that, two sisters burying their mother, in walks, like the premise, I don't even, what is it? Log line? I don't know what
log
movies
line,
called.
yeah.
But making that sentence and making it as good as I can make it, and then putting it at the top of the pages has helped me so much. And every time I don't do it, I'm like, Molly, do it. And I'm like, I can't do it this time. Like it is so hard. And for some writers, it's so easy. Like they can come up with that stuff like that. And I'm not that writer, but that's another bit of advice that I give people too, is I know it's hard, but think of that log line. What is going to sell this book?
Okay.
And then it's easier to write too. Like it just sort of becomes this thing.
Mm-hmm. And then you understand what you're writing as well.
Yeah. And the point of it, like, where's the drama? Where's the good stuff? It's here. It's in this relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, good tip there. Good tip.
I wish I followed it.
You do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned you've got a few different pen names. So one of those is doing the steamy romance, and then another one is doing the women's fiction. So Molly Fader doing the women's fiction. What would you say for you as a sort of the main differences in the two genres in terms of how you write them, how you approach them? Is one easier to write than the other? Is there a different way that you approach them, I suppose?
It's funny. So I mean, obviously the simple things are, one is I write, heterosexual cis het romance. So, man, woman, and the women's fiction are usually women, friends, mothers and daughters and stuff like that. But one of the things that I try to do for the romance, every genre has its like tropes and conventions and things that readers love to see over and over again. But I try to think, if you're writing about sex, and I am writing about sex in the romances, the sex has to be conflicted. It has to have stakes. It has to have drama. You can't just write two people having sex and moving on with their lives, or, so I try to load as much drama into the sexual relationship as I can. And I find that one is more compelling that way. Readers turn pages, but it also helps me write sex scenes. Like sex scenes can be kind of boring. They're like fight scenes. How many times can I say that word? Oh my gosh. But when you load it with drama and tension and secrets, that becomes really interesting to write and to read. Mm-hmm. Did that answer that question?
Well, so for writing the romance then, to kind of keep the sex scene side of it interesting and not just a boring old sex scene, but adding in that tension and drama, is that something then that you just comes more naturally, or is throughout the book of women's fiction in every scene? Or do you find that the two genres are just so different? Actually, there is no comparison to be made. They're two different types.
No, I feel like there's I do think, particularly within genre, whether it's romance or thrillers or mysteries or cozy mysteries or, all the sci-fi, there's so much that unites it. There's so much that is the same, right? So I find, you throw in something like a dual timeline and then the rhythm gets weird, but the rhythm is often, readers are hardwired for a kind of storytelling. I feel as a reader. Mm-hmm. So they're not totally different, but I just think the more things you can load with questions and drama and secrets, the more interesting. Every relationship's gotta, nothing should be without some kind of question that makes the reader go, oh, why, I'm interested. I want to find out what the story is between this woman and her dog. I want to know, why have these two sisters not spoken? Everything should have a question attached.
Mm-hmm. The stakes. Yeah.
Right.
Yay. And just kind of on an aside, I always find this quite interesting. How do you feel about the phrase women's fiction?
Oh, isn't it, I couldn't hate it more. I mean, there's no alternative there's no alternative, and yet women's fiction is so bad. It's a phrase. It's so marginal. It's so narrowing. It is so confining. It doesn't, and yet, I mean, I've started to say, and I think publishers are trying to say like book club fiction, which implies that there's questions and conversation to be had about the book, which maybe is better. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I seem to be in the minority here, whereas I like it.
What? Really?
Yeah. Because it says, well, to me anyway, how I understand women's fiction is that it's a modern story about a woman's relationship with either the man or the partner in her life or her friends or a sibling, and that it's about the psychological journey rather than an action or and it's not romance. So I think for me it differentiates it from a romance, and I get really,
and also from like domestic thrillers, like there's no body, right? Like there's no murder, right? Yeah, that's fair. Okay,
it's not about suspense, and so I get a bugbear. It's so petty, I know, but I get an issue with. I look up women's fiction, if I'm looking for a new read and I see romance is in the top 10, it's like, but I'm not looking for a romance. I'm looking for a strong story about a woman. And if I want that love aspect in it, the relationship aspect in it, then I would go to romance. But it's such a nuanced thing, isn't it? About, and it's so divisive. It's such a divisive phrase.
It really is. Well, I mean, I think it just talks to the power of the reaction that people have to the books that they love, right? Yeah. Like if I love a book, like you think about something like The Seven Wives of Evelyn Hugo, like if we're talking about it and you're going to try to put it in some kind of box, like women's fiction or romance or whatever, and I'm going to fight that because in my mind, that book is blasts through all those boxes, right? So it says good stuff about how people feel about books, I think.
I want to claim them. Yeah.
Right.
But I think that there should be men's fiction as well. I think that could be equally applied to people like the guy who wrote The Horse Whisperer and it's Nicholas somebody.
Sparks.
Yes, it's gone out of my head. Nicholas Sparks. So someone who's writing about the kind of more emotional side of being a man, of being the man in a relationship, or being a father, or being a son, or those kind of more. I think we could equally apply it to men's fiction. Yeah. But anyway, an aside, I just was curious. So Christmas is just about to be upon us. Really, traditionally tough time for many writers to keep writing, unless you're Stephen King, because most of us want to go and spend time with our family and have a few days off. What tips would you have for writers kind of over this busy period about trying to put in boundaries, or trying to just kind of keep a little bit of time aside to keep that practice going, to keep that habit going?
So this is a great question, because I just had this argument with my husband so I'm on a little book tour. And so, but before I left, I said to my husband, Adam, I was like, let's get the Christmas tree. And he was like, hold on, just sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Brief interruption from my father. So we had this argument about, he's like, why do you want it early and you're leaving? And I was like, well, if we don't get it now, it's going to be like the end, like we'll only get terrible trees. And then I had to explain to him that I have this program where every day I log in my word count, and that it sort of just keeps me on track. And I get so much done in the little brief period of time between like December 1st-ish to about January 8th, because I wake up very early and I turn on the Christmas tree and I get an hour and a half of work in. So by the light of that tree, it is truly one of my favorite writing times of the year. So my advice to you, anybody who's struggling to do it, is either one, give up and enjoy the time with your family. You'll be fine. The book will be there when you're done. My second bit of advice is steal time where you can, whether it's when everybody goes to sleep, if you're one of those people, or if it's early in the morning, and just give up expectations and just give it a go. Just try it. See if you can get some, and be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself.
Oh, kind words there to finish our conversation with, because the time has flown in and we're almost at the top of our time. Molly, I've loved chatting to you.
Me too, Emma. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been a joy. It's really, because we were saying just before we started recording, it's been in the diary for a long time and it was well worth the wait. It's been lovely getting to know you and learning about your books, and I can't wait to read them and delve in. I'm really excited about it. So thank you so much and have a great Christmas.
Thank you so much, Emma. Same to you. Thanks, everybody out there. Merry Christmas.
If you're a first-time novelist who is struggling to either finish your novel or get those revisions to where you want them to be, then I've got just the thing for you. I have a small group coaching program which runs over 12 months, and over the course of that program I will help you fix those plot problems that you've been struggling with. I'll help you get under the surface of your characters so you really get to know them and what's driving them. And crucially for you, I give you that self-belief that you need to get you through the roller coaster that is writing a novel, so that you can carry on, get to the end, and get your book, your story out into the world so it can change people's lives. If that sounds good to you, if that is something that you'd be interested in doing, I know I can help you get to where you want to be. So book a call with me. Let's have a chat and see if we are a good fit for each other. If you're interested in doing that, then go to emmadesi.com/story builder. I look forward to chatting. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful and inspirational. Now, don't forget to come on over to Facebook and join my group, Turning Readers into Writers. It is especially for you if you are a beginner writer who is looking to write their first novel. If you join the group, you will also find a free cheat sheet there called 3 Secret Hacks to Write with Consistency. So go to emmadesi.com/turning readers into writers. Hit join. Can't wait to see you in there. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.